Hello and welcome to another webinar in our leadership series. In today's webinar, we'll discuss appreciative inquiry. My name is Dr. Donald Chick and I'm President and CEO of New Synergist Consulting. We provide a variety of products and services including leadership development, diversity, equity, and inclusion services, strategy support and development, as well as data analytics and coaching. I look forward to helping you understand appreciative inquiry and how it can help you and your organization be more productive. We have 4 webinar objectives today. First, we want to have a discussion so by the end of this webinar, we know the meaning of appreciative inquiry. Second, we want to understand how to think and ask questions and have a discussion in positive terms while avoid thinking negatively. Third, we want to learn how to encourage others to think positively. And finally, we want to be able to create positive imagery. Appreciative inquiry focuses on the best in people. It focuses on positive thinking and future possibilities based on the goals and desires of individuals and organizations. We want to help you today understand appreciative inquiry and why it's so important to focus on the positive rather than the negative, to focus on strengths rather than weaknesses, and to focus on successes rather than failures. Let's get started. What actually is appreciative inquiry? Well, the definition of appreciative inquiry is the ability to recognize the best in people and utilize those strengths to discover new possibilities and new results. Appreciative inquiry focuses on positive thinking and expresses ideas and opinions to reach an end result. What does that mean for you as an individual or in the business or organization you work in? Appreciative inquiry in the workplace encourages all employees to think positively, which in turn helps them overcome their own negative thoughts to work harder and reach their own goals for better productivity. So when we talk about getting results or reaching your goals, really we're talking about generating a better and desired future. Appreciative inquiry helps build a vision for a better future by using questions to turn every person's attention to their past, present, and future successes. These questions generally focus on what the person enjoys about their surroundings and their current situations. Once these ideas have been identified, the individual can take these positive thoughts to turn toward the future and build a path to success. Since we as people learn from our past mistakes and choices, we can use questions and insights to decide what we can use to make the right choices later. The key is identifying what works for you and how you can use that information to your advantage in order to create a better future. So what are some ways to create that future today? Determine what your goals are. Make sure they're SMART goals. Make a plan for those goals and identify how appreciative inquiry can affect these goals and plans. One of the age-old ways of determining how a person views a situation is asking them if the glass is half full or half empty. Many pessimists will reply that the glass is half empty, while opportunists will see the glass as half full. Even one pessimist in the group can hinder everyone else's positive attitude. So it's important to engage every employee in positive thinking. When everyone avoids criticism and implements the can do attitude, it not only creates a pleasant work environment for everyone, but employees begin to feel better about themselves and take pride to finish any job with ease. How can you engage others to think positively? Encourage group discussions. Invite others to share their ideas and opinions. Make them focus on the positive side of things and avoid negative phrasings. When employees take pride in themselves, they are more likely to take pride in their organization. But if they have negative feelings about where they work, it can show in their productivity. When you change how a person views or thinks about your organization and their roles in it, you in turn change how the organization is perceived as a whole. This is why it's always important to meet with employees and listen to what they have to say. Value their ideas and opinions. If the employee feels as though they are making a contribution to the organization and they are part of the master plan, they will feel more inclined to think positively and alter the overall view of the organization. Let's have a discussion about Alex and Marshall. Alex and Marshall are doing some brainstorming on marketing ideas for a new project. They were stuck on forming new ideas, so Alex decided to use appreciative inquiry to see if it could help them along. He told Marshall that they are making changes for the future and wanted him to feel confident in his efforts. He asked Marshall for his opinions on the new product and what he thought about it. Marshall was instantly intrigued and began talking more about the product and what he thought about it. He opened up with positive thoughts and soon shared lots of new ideas. Alex was glad that Marshall could open up more and share his ideas because he knew it would help them do a great job for the company. One of the best ways to relieve stress, to be happier, to be more productive, is to think positively. If we want to reach our goals, we need to have positive thoughts in order to help us have the desire to do so. Remember, every action starts with a thought. Let's figure out how to make our thoughts more positive. One of the first things that can ruin a positive attitude is looking at a situation and only noticing the negative aspects or the what's wrong side of the equation. Since the main focus of appreciative inquiry is being positive and aiming toward goals, a pessimistic attitude won't get anyone very far. When presented with a problem, take a few minutes and look at both sides of the problem. Make a mental list of everything that is positive about the situation before touching on the negative aspects. You'll find that any situation won't appear as bad as we think when we notice the positive first. So what are some keys to shifting our thoughts? 1, avoid the all or nothing thinking. In other words, deciding that a situation only has two sides. 2, realize the difference between being right and being happy. And finally, avoid overgeneralizing a situation. Focus on details. A common misconception that some people make is that being positive or progressive means they cannot make mistakes, nor can they have faults. This, of course, is not true. Mistakes happen all the time, and although they can sometimes be prevented, they will not be stopped altogether. The key is to learn from your mistakes and then focus on the successes that follow. When a child falls off her bike before learning to ride, We don't focus on how many times they fail. We celebrate when they ride down the sidewalk on their own. Being positive doesn't mean we eliminate mistakes or problems. We just learn to focus on the achievements we reach. Success leads to more success, particularly when we are focused on the positive. From a young age, we have learned that positive language has more effect on us than negativity. When we tell ourselves, I can't do that, or I'll never finish this, we normally find ourselves to be right. But if we use more positive and influential phrases and language, we can find ourselves feeling more confident and ready to handle any situation. Positive words encourage positive thinking. So add some I can and I'm great phrases to your vocabulary. Positivity is also contagious, so don't be afraid to share it with others and encourage them to think positively as well. How can you use positive language? Avoid negatives such as can't or won't. Reassure yourself and remind yourself of your abilities and your ability to learn. Compliment yourself. Great job. Well done. I'm awesome. As we've already discussed, positive words encourage positive thinking. The same goes for negative phrasing. When we allow ourselves to use negative language, our thoughts become more negative. Studies have shown that there are 5 key phrases that any person should remove from their vocabulary in order to ban negative language. Just. The word limits our accomplishments and devalues our skills. By using phrases such as, I'm just an accountant, or I just work in customer service, won't make you happy or more successful. Try. The word can often give us an excuse to fail. We will try to accomplish something, but if we don't succeed, of course it's not our fault. But remember, you either do something or you don't. Can't. This word is often used when a person does not want to take the effort to reach a goal or an accomplishment. Replace this word with a mental action plan on how you can act on your goals. Impossible. This word is normally used when we're faced with something big and overwhelming. However, anything can seem possible if broken down into smaller, more attainable jobs. Anything can be accomplished when we take things one step at a time. Someday. This word can have the same problem as try. It sets us up to allow for failure. When we plan to reach our goals someday, we're giving ourselves permission to procrastinate. Set a timeline for your goals and stick to it. I'd like to introduce Stacey. Stacey was angry that her manager had decided to give her another long project to complete. Didn't he see how many mistakes I made last time? She became more frustrated when she felt like she did not have enough time to finish and would have to turn it in late. Stacey was ready to give up on the whole thing. When she spoke to her manager again, he told her that she always did a great job and that he had faith that she would complete this project successfully. Stacey immediately began to feel better about it and decided to have a more positive outlook. She remembered the success she had had on the last project and kept reminding herself she can do a great job. When she began to feel negative again, she just remembered her manager's words. When she turned in the final project on time, she realized her critical thinking almost got the best of her. Appreciative inquiry can open new doors for us. It can help us think positively so we can use different ways of thinking in order to be more successful. In this next section of our webinar, we're going to discuss the 4D model, the 4Ds of appreciative inquiry. Discovery is about finding what type of processes, organization, and skills work for you and will help you along your way. It's also a process of learning to appreciate what has been given to us and using it to our benefit. People often discover some of this information by speaking with others and learning about what has worked in their organization in the past. This can lead employees to feel more appreciative about their role in the company and what they can do to make meaningful contributions. Examples include conversing with other employees about their experiences, asking managers what methods have worked in the past, and simply observing past actions that have been successful. The dream phase of appreciative inquiry focuses on what would work for yourself and the company in the future. This dream session can be run in a large group conference or can be done with a few peers. Either way, it allows everyone to open up about what they want to see from the company or the organization or team and any ideas they may have for improvement. The idea of the dream part of this model is to use positive energy to create a vision for the future while creating goals and accomplishments that will help you and the company reach that point. Dream up the ideal and perfect situation without any caveats. Ask yourself 3 questions. Would this work in the future? What do I want to see happen? And finally, what would be perfect for me and my organization? The design phase of appreciative inquiry is all about how you and the organization plan to reach the goals and dreams that were lined out in the discovery and dream phases. This part of the model focuses on what needs to be done to reach these goals and to make the progress needed. Generally, this part is carried out by a smaller group of members that concentrate on how to move forward, but it can be done with larger groups as well. Anyone in this group is encouraged to remember to use positive language and to encourage their coworkers and teammates to think positively about their work. Examples of questions that you might want to ask. What do we need to do to make this happen? Will things need to be changed or modified? Do we need to introduce one or more new elements? The delivery phase, sometimes called the destiny phase, is the final stage of the 4D appreciative inquiry model, and it focuses on executing the plans and ideas that were thought out and developed in the previous 3 phases. In this part of the model, employees need to take necessary actions to progress toward change and positively obtaining their goals. A plan isn't worth the paper it's written on if it doesn't have a dynamic team behind it to carry it out. What would this team do, for example? Well, 1, they would implement any changes that are needed based on previous questions. They would remove elements that no longer work, and this is an important part of that delivery plan. And finally, they would also assign tasks and duties as needed to make sure the delivery phase or destiny phase is completed. Jeremy was working with a group of employees who were working to create a new form of marketing for their company. Many of them had run out of ideas and weren't sure where to start. So Jeremy asked the employees what have they noticed was working for the company in the past. Great question. Everyone named several methods that had been successful. Then he asked them what they wanted to see for the marketing scheme, whether it was successful or if it fell through. He wanted them to imagine the big picture. Then he asked them to come up with one action that would get them to that success they already described. He asked them what resources and items they would need to get there. When several employees displayed their new ideas, Jeremy told them the last thing they needed to do was to simply put them into action. That was their next big step. Once you get to the implementation stage of the 4D model, you may want to use the 4I model to talk about ways to implement the changes and designs that have been created by individuals in your organization. In this section of our webinar, we're going to discuss the 4I model and how to use it. In the initiate phase, people are introduced to the appreciative inquiry theory and how it can help an organization. This phase is important in order to develop planning and strategies for success. It debuts new plans and ideas that the employees have about the company and what can be improved upon, or even changed or eliminated. These ideas are usually backed up with previous experiences, employee research, and documented successes or failures. From here, senior managers can begin to formulate a plan for themselves and what they can do to aid in the process. Questions to think about. What plans have been laid out for our organization? What is my role in these plans? What should we focus on first? The inquire phase aims to help employees begin to form a plan or course of action to make the plans in the initiate phase actually happen. Also called the interview stage, this part of the plan involves a lot of communicating between employees, managers, and senior leaders. Individuals are urged to share their ideas and visions, which can be used as valuable input. Much of this work is done in groups, large or small, but don't forget to utilize personal one-on-one interviews as well. Also remember to encourage positive language and include positive thinking methods for everyone involved. Some questions might include, what do I want to see happen? What do my coworkers want to see happen? What do we need to make changes in our organization in order to reach our goals? The imagine part of the plan focuses on forming a route of action for all of the ideas and brainstorming previously collected. Its purpose is to determine what needs to be done and how it can be carried out. Once a stable vision has been designed, it can be shared with others to ensure their participation. Ensure that the plan is introduced with a positive attitude and outlook in order to encourage employees to support the plan and make them feel more confident about moving forward. Whether this is done in small or large groups, every employee should have a positive outlook about moving forward with the action plan selected. Some questions to consider. What common ideas and themes did we find? What do we need in order to change? And what steps do we need to take right now? Finally, using appreciative inquiry, the action plan can be put into place and carried out according to its design. Employees may be fearful or skeptical at first, But this is where the positive language and attitudes are put to the test. Every person has a role and should take the steps necessary to carry out their part of the plan. Remind employees of their abilities and praise them for their efforts during this transition. Confident and self-assured employees are needed to support any change in your organization, and they are the key to a smooth implementation of your plan. Some things to consider. Recognize what's needed to carry out the plan. Reinforce the plan and what it is designed to do. Encourage employees as they carry out the plan. Jeremy arrives at the manager meeting and says his employees have come up with a great new marketing plan. First, he lays out the design of the plan and describes how it would need to be initiated. He described what would need to be done and what kind of results it would bring to the organization. He answered questions. He listened to their ideas and opinions. Then he reminded them that the purpose of the plan was to increase marketing and boost sales for the company. When the managers were satisfied with his answers, they decided to give the plan a try and put it in place. As soon as the responsibilities were delegated and everyone knew their role, they knew they could get the plan underway. Many of us associate interviews with fear, anxiety, and something we just want to get behind us. In this next section of our webinar, we're going to talk about the appreciative interview style and how we can mostly eliminate this fear and anxiety. We'll talk about how to use stories and positive questioning that can result in an interview that is in the best interest of the interviewer and the person being interviewed. When we ask questions to the interviewee, what kind of response are we expecting? If we ask questions that can come across as negative or critical, we can expect that kind of answer. But by using positive language to form more positive questions, we can not only put the other person at ease, but we can make them feel more confident about their abilities and be able to have a better interview. Use positive experiences to help the person realize their own skills and ambitions while at the same time determining how they would work with the team and the company. Some questions you might consider. What was the best job you've ever had? What do you value most in a job? What do you like best about yourself? If you open an interview describing how the last employee suddenly quit and left a pile of work for everyone else to do, the interviewee does not have a very positive outlook on the company from the start. Instead, open an interview with a positive experience and describe positive events that have happened at your company. When using positive questions, have the interviewee share their positive experiences and personal qualities. When a person can share openly about a happy situation or personal experience, they feel more at ease and are more prone to being positive themselves, which can mean good news for your company as well as the new employee. When we interview an employee, we already have an idea of the qualities and skills needed for the position. We know what it takes when working for the company and what qualities should be possessed by the employee. However, there's always more than one way to utilize these skills and put them to good use. The key is to find out what works for the company as well as the employee. Do they work better based on experience? Do they have positive energy to contribute? Do they have a positive outlook? When you find that happy medium between the two, you'll find a great fit for everyone. When interviewing and sharing stories with someone, recognize the recurring themes that each person shares. Look for a pattern in what they've experienced and achieved and what they have in common. Some of the common themes you may hear include commitment, expertise, trust, etc. When you recognize the recurring themes, you can decide together which one or which ones are the most important and which ones you favor the most in your organization. With these themes, you can build a plan together because you will know what each of you value and exactly what you will want from the experience. Common themes include commitment, for instance, seeing a project through to the end, loyalty, staying even when the going gets tough, experience, of course, that's valuable on many levels, and finally, cohesion, teamwork, and being a team player. Deborah was interviewing an employee that has been with the company for a number of years. She could tell he was a little nervous, but she wasn't sure how to make him feel more at ease. After speaking with him for a while, she finally asked him what his favorite task had been so far. She noticed how excited he became and began to describe a time when he and his colleagues worked together and solved a challenging manufacturing problem. She encouraged him to share his stories, noticing how comfortable he was feeling. She asked him to pull out the positive characteristics of other tasks and asked him did he see a pattern emerge. Deborah then noticed he had similar qualities in all of his work and that he had a good skill set from them. Before he left, she thanked him for sharing his experiences and was glad to see him finally smiling. I've heard it said that the best way to predict the future is to create it. In this section of our webinar, we're going to talk about anticipatory reality. In other words, how do we think positively to help us create images of the future that we desire for ourselves and our organizations in order to help us be happier, more successful, and more productive. We know that our past does not always identify our future, but planning our future can affect our present. Thinking ahead to our successful future can increase our positivity today and raise our confidence. When we focus on the successes we want to achieve and imagine them coming true, it can give us great hope for the future, which in turn gives us hope for today. We can stay positive by knowing that we can achieve that successful future and always keep a positive attitude about reaching our goals. The benefits include continually having a positive outlook, successfully reaching our goals, and improved focus. Many of us are the type of people who automatically assume the worst in any situation, i.e., the glass is half full. We start to anticipate anything that can go wrong and try to determine how we would handle anything that comes up. But if we learn to control these negative anticipations, we can begin to see any situation from the positive side. When we view the positive aspects of a situation, we feel more confident about our ability to handle them. Because no matter how big or scary a situation may seem, remaining positive and changing how we view the problem can literally make anything possible. Some examples to controlling negative anticipation include watching out for hidden negative thoughts or assumptions, avoid jumping to conclusions, and realizing the problem is the situation, not you. The decisions we make today can influence how we see things later. When we limit our negative anticipations and concentrate on creating a positive outlook, our current decisions and thoughts begin to develop into a positive form of thinking. This can improve our overall confidence. Worrying about what may or may not happen or what could go wrong in a situation can drain us and make us feel as though we don't have any hope. But if we change our thoughts today and limit the negativity we allow in our planning, our decisions can be influenced by positivity and help us make better choices in our everyday lives. The benefits include having more confidence about our decisions, having fewer negative or anxious feelings, and having a positive outlook on future decisions. One of the negative things about anticipatory reality is that we often base our thoughts and conclusions on things that we've heard or that we have overplayed in our own heads. We begin to think about the worst thing that could happen or anything that could possibly go wrong, even if we have nothing to base it upon. Instead, we should focus on the facts of a problem and realize what is actually there. For example, you forgot to turn in a weekly report to your manager. Part of you begins to panic and starts thinking of the negative possibilities that could come from that mistake, such as being written up, upsetting your boss, maybe even getting fired. But when you stop to look at the facts and data that are involved in this situation, you will become calmer and more positive. We know that, in this instance anyway, the manager allows reports to be turned in a day late with a reasonable explanation. He has told you before that if something comes up, you're free to go speak to him. Once you've reviewed this helpful piece of information for yourself, you feel less worried about the little mistake you made and feel more confident about picking yourself back up and moving on. Avoid word of mouth stories. Avoid the maybe or what if possibilities. And finally, avoid dramatized outcomes or overreactions to negative events. Bruce was finishing his report on the new accounting software and was preparing to show it to his manager. He wanted to believe the manager would like it and would credit the employees working with the software. But he wasn't really sure how it would go over with him. He began to doubt himself and doubt if the software was fit for his company. He became worried that the manager would overlook his numbers and make decisions that didn't benefit anyone. Bruce then realized he was overreacting and needed to show the report first. He told himself to think positively and wait to see what the manager thought. When the manager complimented his report findings and the use of the software, Bruce knew he had overthought his reaction way too much. Now that we've discussed anticipatory reality, let's discuss the power of imagery. We want to create images that help us be more motivated to reach the goals we've set for ourselves and for our teams. These images can play a significant role in our ability to be successful. Positive imagery can serve not only as a reminder of good work, but it can also serve as a reward. Some physical forms of positive imagery include a shiny trophy after a race or a chart of how many products you sold last month. But we can also have mental positive imagery that can help us along our way when we cannot see our physical rewards. Our performance is based upon the kind of outcome we want. And if we reinforce what we want with positive imagery, then we are not afraid to go after it. Maybe it's the image of having happy coworkers when you complete a project, or the image of an empty desk at the end of the week. Remind yourself of these positive images to keep you focused on the task at hand and doing your best to get it done. Being positive does not mean that you are oblivious to the outside world and the things that can go wrong in it. But being positive does mean that you can be prepared for the worst, but keeping a positive outlook for everything else. Being prepared for adversity simply means that you do not want to lie to yourself about what can happen and that you see the situation for what it is. You know that things can be different and that things will change, but you don't let that put a damper on your positive outlook. When you are better prepared, you have the knowledge to know that you may not be able to change the world and the problems that arise in it, but you can change your own life, and you have the choice to remain positive while dealing with any negative situation. When a problem is presented before you, chances are you cannot change what has already happened or the effect of the problem on everyone else. But you as a person are more flexible and creative and have the ability to manipulate how you view a problem and how to solve it. Realize that you have options, that you can control how you react to something. Don't look at the problem as though it only has a black or white solution. Remember, there's a gray area too, and you'll find the best way for you to handle it. Remember, you can change even if the problem can't. You can control only yourself. And finally, there is more than one correct way to do just about anything. When we see something as perfect, we generally see something that is free of flaws and makes us happy. Sometimes when we have a large group of problems, we have trouble deciding what to start on first. When this happens, a helpful exercise is to think about the perfect situation. When you do, what is the first problem you notice is missing? Not only does it help you determine which problem you should tackle first, but it lets you have an image of a perfect situation without the problem, so you know it's not impossible. Visualizing the perfect situation can help propel you in the direction needed to remedy almost any situation. So what is a perfect situation? Well, ask yourself these questions. What makes a situation perfect? What problems instantly go away? Can you do it on your own? Will you need help? Anna was working on a design project for the new library that was opening soon. After hours of tedious work, she felt as though she wouldn't finish on time or have enough energy to make a great design. She began to feel discouraged and depressed. When she walked back into her office, she saw a small plaque she received about her last design project. It made her smile to remember that she had done something so successful. She remembered the problems she had had on the last project and thought about how she dealt with them. Anna knew this project was different. It had more steps than the last one, but she knew how to handle those when they came up. When she thought of her finished design, she thought about how great the library would look and how it would benefit so many people. Feeling more confident and positive, Anna had the energy to get back to work on her design. John Maxwell states that leadership is influence. So we want to use appreciative inquiry in order to be more influential. In this section of our webinar, we're going to discuss how to utilize appreciative inquiry in order to be more influential in supporting positive thoughts, positive change, and helping those around us be more positive in order to support the goals of each individual and the teams that they are a part of. Every problem or challenge is different in some way. Some of them we can handle on our own. Some of them requires help from others. Whatever the case, we know that we can solve the problem the best way we know how by using our inner strengths. Maybe you think well when you look at the big picture, or you like to take a step-by-step approach toward solutions. The key is to find out what your strength or strengths are and use them to your advantage. Use appreciative inquiry to ask yourself what kind of strengths have worked for me before. Ask yourself how you felt when you used those strengths to solve a problem, and remember how confident and satisfied you felt afterwards. These appreciative inquiry exercises will help you get to the root of your problem and then help you determine how to solve it. The perception you have of yourself not only affects how others see you, but it also affects how you view the world and act in it. Sometimes we can't control these things, embarrassing moments, mistakes, etc. But there are many things we can do that can boost our confidence. When we remember our earlier successes or imagine a goal we want to achieve, we can get an instant confidence boost and can feel better about the choices we make. When we're confident in ourselves, we are more apt to make positive changes without being fearful and without our own criticism. Here are just some routine tips that can help you build your confidence. Dressing nicely, presenting confident body language, offering in a confident way your opinions and insights. And finally, complimenting other people. Guess what? It'll make you feel good as well. Many things in our lives have changed so much and continue to grow over time. But what makes them change? What steps do they take to make something different? We'd be surprised to know that the simplest way to make changes is to ask a question. Inquiry is the seed of change because it brings up the mental question, what if? What if cell phones didn't just make calls, but sent a message of typed text? What if we sold French fries with our hamburger and called it a combo meal? What if new customers received a 10% discount when they sign up with us? Through appreciative inquiry, anyone can ask a question that seeks to find another type of thinking. When different types of thinkers come together, they can create various types of changes that can alter how we view many things in our lives. When you look for a job opening in the want ads, what type of ads do you notice first? Chances are you read the ones that mention your type of skill set, secretary, chef, construction worker, etc. You feel confident reading these ads first because you know what they are in your area of skills and you're confident that you can do the job. The same effect is true for anyone else. When people have an idea of what is expected of them, they are more likely to drift toward that persona. If we are positive and helpful in our own actions, people will naturally want to join in when we encourage them to feel the same way. They feel as though they are expected to be more positive, to feel more positive, to be more upbeat or confident. So they begin to review how they do things and they gravitate toward a different way of doing things, a more positive way of doing things. Alan was having trouble with solving a problem in the company's budget plan. He was feeling stumped and didn't know he could find a solution. He took a few minutes to remember his strengths, such as complex math skills and attention to detail. He kept reminding himself of his skills, and he began to feel confident in his ability to finish the problem. Feeling more confident, he was able to dig deeper into the budget and see if anything was out of the ordinary. He had solved a similar problem before, so he knew he could be the one to find the issue. After several more attempts, he found an error in the report that was causing him to come up short. Relieved at what he had found, Alan wondered why he doubted himself in the first place. A critical part of being a good leader or a good supervisor is to understand what it means to coach and manage the individuals on your team. We'll talk about how to use appreciative inquiry and the appreciative method when you are engaged in coaching, mentoring, or managing individuals in your organizations. When we examine how our business is run, we notice what functions and works for everyone and what doesn't. The key to a well-managed team is building around what works and encouraging growth with it. As managers or leaders, we can try to change things that derail our employees from what they usually do. While this is normally done with good intentions, it can often lead to problems in the company plan and actually have the opposite effect of what we were hoping for. Notice what is working for the employees now and how well they function. If changes are needed or even attempted, try to incorporate the current structure while leading the employees in the new direction. And certainly, remember the old saying, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. As a leader, we often look at our task list in a negative way. One of the first things we try to accomplish is to decrease certain areas, such as mistakes, tardiness, and complaints. But focusing on what we want to decrease normally includes negative attributes of the job. If we focus on these things for too long, we can drive ourselves to negativity very quickly. Instead, focus on the aspects that can be increased. By focusing on what can be increased, we are focusing on positive attributes of the job, more sales, more goals, more customer and employee satisfaction. If we approached an employee with the same problem, which route of improvement would they feel more confident taking? Decreasing their typing mistakes or increasing their typing ability? So think about different areas of your job and think about how you can make increases in sales, employee morale, employee productivity, employee confidence. All of these areas are related to thinking positively about accomplishing your goals. Another aspect of being positive is being able to see the best in people instead of being critical. And of course, no one is perfect and everyone has faults, But that does not mean we have to define them by their faults. When we recognize the best in people, not only do we benefit from knowing what great attributes they can contribute, but it will make them feel more confident about themselves and their job skills. When they feel better about themselves, they want to do better at their job, they'll work harder to make progress, and they'll work harder to get the job done. Don't be afraid to compliment employees on their job skills and what they have accomplished. When you find yourself focusing on what they have done wrong, refer to your mental list of all of their good qualities and determine which list overpowers the other. We talked about negative phrasing earlier, and we need to remember that using negative terms and phrases is one of the leading causes of poor performance and low morale. Harsh words can damage any employee relationship and can often bring out a sense of defensiveness. When you find yourself wanting to use negative phrases, either with yourself or an employee, stop and think of the words you're using. Then rethink the sentence by removing negative comments and replacing them with a positive one. You'll find that you can still get your point across without making the employee feel as though they're being attacked. Remove comments like, "It's too hard," or "I'll never finish this," or "You'll never finish this," or "It's too late to change now." These types of comments simply do not help. Michelle is managing a group of new hires in the medical records department. To help introduce them to different processes and tasks they use in the department, she detailed what the other employees use since it was the most effective and it would allow for minimal mistakes. She didn't want to offend the new employees, so instead of telling them what to stay away from, she reminded them of things they can improve on, such as filing speed and attention to detail. Although she knew these employees were new to the department, she could tell most of them had the right skills. She continued to work with them as they became more familiar with the way of doing things and stayed nearby in case they had any questions. This is an example of a positive way of dealing with employees who need more support, more motivation, and have a need to have their confidence built as they progress. In order to effectively utilize appreciative inquiry, you have to build a positive core. In order to understand whether or not this is happening, you have to become more self-aware. In this next section of our webinar, we're going to talk about tips that you can use in order to successfully build this positive core, which will allow you to be a better advocate and user of appreciative inquiry. Identifying our strengths can give us an instant confidence boost because it reminds us of the things we can do that are really great. But sometimes when we don't notice our strengths right away, we might assume that we don't have any, or worse, downplay the ones we actually have. A common exercise to find our strengths includes making a list of everything we're good at. Review this list several times and remember a time when you had to use each attribute. Keep this list nearby to help remind yourself of them and remain more confident. Some tips for finding these strengths include analyzing how you handle situations, especially successfully. Determine what your desires are and how you go after making them occur. Examine how you solve problems. These will help you understand the strengths that you have that are inherent to you and that can help you be more positive and successful. Sometimes the term best practice might seem confusing if we don't attach it to something. In appreciative inquiry, best practices refer to the practices that work best for you and the organization you're a part of. What practices make you the most confident and positive? What practices make you feel successful when you complete them? What practices involve employee morale and progress? Remember, these practices can be individualized to each person. So what works for one person may not work for another. Here are some tips or questions to consider. What practices make you feel as though you've accomplished something? What practices boost your confidence? What practices make you feel positive about the end result? Keep those in mind when you're looking for how to improve on and take advantage of best practices for yourself. Another example is to think about peak experiences. And this is commonly defined as moments in which we feel the highest levels of happiness and future possibilities. They can happen in everyday situations or during extreme events in our lives. They can happen when we accomplish a new goal or finish a long, difficult project. The key is to remember how they made us feel and how they made us feel positive and confident. While they're not necessarily an aha moment in our lives, peak experiences can help us notice key moments in our lives and how we felt when we experienced them. Keeping these memories with you at all times will ensure that you can always receive a lift of possibility when needed. Sometimes personal modesty can keep us from seeing our own successes, which can keep us from feeling fully confident or self-assured. Our past successes are often viewed as our roots or the areas that can be started from and built upon in terms of moving forward. We often forget to use these successes to remind us what it took to get us to our personal level of achievement. But when we relive these successes, it can remind us that we can overcome almost anything and ultimately feel better about ourselves. When we feel more confident in ourselves and our success, it can reduce our stress and serve as an anchor for positivity. How should you or what can you do to help you remember your successes? Keep visual reminders, trophies, charts, other physical things that you can reach out and touch or look at. Review these successes in your head on a regular and routine basis. Talk about successes with friends and learn from each other. All of these will help you remain more positive and confident about the abilities you already have. Robert was feeling depressed after his last presentation. He felt as though he didn't do as great of a job as he normally does and was feeling really sad about it. Robert was determined to bounce back on his next presentation. First, he made a list of all of his personal strengths and how he puts them to good use. Then he made notes of some ways his strengths helped him reach his other goals. When he remembered all of his past successes, he felt very confident in himself and felt like he could do a better job on the next project. He was determined not to let one misstep stop him from succeeding in the future. I hope this webinar has allowed you to have a deeper understanding of the power and impact you can have if you use appreciative inquiry. If you can focus on your strengths rather than your weaknesses, if you can focus on your past success instead of spending too much time focusing on your past failures. If you can focus on the positives of you and your team rather than the negatives, if you can change your focus, you can change your future. So remember, appreciative inquiry is not just about positive thinking, but it's about changing your mindset so your focus is on success, on positive thinking, on your strengths and the strengths of all of those around you. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate all of you. And remember, as always, I see you.